Are you looking for ways to save money in your garden? Saving seeds from your harvest for next year's planting is one of the best ways to do that. Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Rednecked video. Again, my name's Chris, and if you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. I've got all these vegetables spread out in front of me. Some of them don't look so good, but there's a reason for that because I've let them grow out so we can save seeds from them. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Before I get started into actually how to save seeds, if you've never done it before, one of the things you really want to make sure is that any seeds you save are from heirloom plants as opposed to a hybrid plant. Now, if you're not familiar with that, a hybrid is just a cross between two different types of plants. And an heirloom is more of a purebred, I guess, so to speak. In simple terms, really all that means is that an heirloom plant, if you save the seeds and you start them again next year, you're going to get the exact same kind of plant. So if I plant these jalapeno peppers, for example, if I save the seeds from these, plant them next year, I'm going to get jalapenos that are exactly the same. They're true to the parent plant. Same thing with the cantaloupe, same thing with okra, same thing with tomatoes, whatever it is you're saving seeds from. If they're heirloom, they'll be true to the parent plant and they'll produce an exact replica, well, not an exact replica, but the same type of plant as the mother plant. Heirloom, on the other hand, is going to produce you never know what. You might get good results from that, you might not. So if you take your seeds from a hybrid, like a hybrid tomato or a hybrid pepper or a hybrid, anything, and you plant them and then it grows next year, you're not going to get the exact same type of tomato out of that. You're going to get a different type of tomato, and it may be better, it may be worse, it's just a crapshoot. So you just don't know. So it's important that if you're going to save seeds, you invest in heirloom plants. That's really all I'm going to say about that. Enough said. These are all heirloom plants, so no problems with that. Saving seeds is pretty easy. In its simplest form, let's talk about peppers, for example. It's going to work just the way you kind of expect it to work. I'm going to cut this pepper just right down the center, jalapeno pepper, and I'm going to take out all the seeds. You probably should be wearing gloves or something if you're sensitive to peppers especially. Would be a good time to make sure you're wearing gloves or something when you're dealing with that. And the seeds just get removed. Might be easier if I cut it in thirds, actually. There we go. And scrape the seeds out. And I'm just going to use my fingers. Just make sure I remember that and don't rub my eyes. All right, so before I go on to any further, let's talk about what it is you need to do to your plants when it comes to selecting which ones you're going to save seeds from. Always look for your strongest plant, and then what you do at that point is you just pick out whichever plant you think is the strongest. They may all be the same, so just pick one at random if that's the case. But if you have one that's obviously stronger than the others, gets bigger, produces more fruit, produces bigger fruit, any of those kinds of characteristics that you would consider favorable, that would be the plant that you would want to select to save your seeds from. And then most of your fruits and vegetables, you're going to let those plants go. You're going to let at least a couple of fruits on there, a couple of peppers, a couple of okra, a couple of whatever it is that you're wanting to save seeds from, go all the way to overly ripe. And you can see probably with this pepper, it's starting to get crinkly on the edges here. It's starting to get soft. It's overripe. That's what I want to get to before I start saving seeds from the plant. And that goes for just about everything. Tomatoes are a little bit of an exception. Tomatoes, you want to pick them just about the same as you would pick them as if you were going to eat them, and then you save the seeds from them. But pretty much everything else you let go overly ripe. Okra, let it go to the point where it's just pretty much dry. It's dried on the vine, and these are a couple of okra. You can shake it. You can hear the seeds rattling around inside. And that's what you want to do with okra. You don't want to clip it off when it's nice and young and tender like you would eat it. You want to let it go until it gets fully mature and starts drying. Same thing with beans. You want to let them go until they're fully mature and start drying before you start saving seeds from them. That means that the seed itself is viable. If you were to cut these vegetables off the plants as they were younger, smaller, like the size that you would want to eat in most cases, the seed's not going to be very viable at that point. So again, it's very simple on pretty much all of these vegetables are going to work the same way. Just cut them open, whatever works best for you. Remove the seeds out of them. Get this flesh out of the way so I can get to the seeds. And honestly, with peppers produce a ton of seeds. And if you're just saving for yourself and only yourself, you probably don't need more than just 1, maybe 2 peppers at the most. We're getting quite a few seeds out of, this is 2 peppers right here, and it's way more seed than I'm gonna be growing. I only grow a couple of plants a year. I think I've got probably about 40, 50 seeds right here right now. Don't need that many seeds, but I always wanna get a little bit extra just in case. And it's always good to have a little bit extra just in case next year if something happens and none of your seeds sprouts, or excuse me, none of your, you don't save the seeds or something like that, you've got extra. Because these seeds will keep for several years once you get them dried out and stored properly. All right, so I've got 3 peppers here, but again, I don't think I need that many seeds, so I don't think I'm gonna mess with getting seeds out of the 3rd one. I think we're just gonna leave this the way it is for jalapenos. Okay, so I've got my seeds all removed. Now, what you want to do is move them to a location, put them on something, a plate, well, hang on, let me clean up here. I can't talk and do this at the same time. Got that all cleaned up. All right, so there are my seeds. Peppers are pretty easy because the seeds come out real nice and clean. You don't have to wash them off or anything like that. Put them on something we're gonna have to dry them out is what we're gonna have to do because they're wet right now. And if you were to just store them inside of a, like a envelope or a container or something like that while they're still wet, they're gonna either sprout or they're going to mold and mildew, and then you just wanna have good seeds. So put them in something, a plate, a bowl, something like that, preferably something where you can get them spread out kind of in a single layer. I've got a couple of these little styrofoam food containers. They work out pretty well because they're compartmentized, so I can get several different kinds of seeds in one container. Just make sure I don't mix them, that's all I got to do. And we're going to put this in a dry place and let them just dry out. And depending on where you live, what your climate's like, it's going to take a couple of weeks for them to dry out. What you want to get to, though, is a point where the seeds are good and dry and not wet. So you can take them, pinch them with your thumbnail, and they should snap. They shouldn't bend, they shouldn't dent in, they should snap, break in half. That's a good dry seed. Now once they're at that point, then you can store them in an envelope, pill containers, whatever it is that you want to store your seeds in a nice, cool, dark place, and they'll be just fine for several years. But you've got to get them dried out first. So there's my jalapenos. I'm gonna go ahead and cut up some habaneros and get my habaneros in here, and I've got some banana peppers I'm gonna do, and a couple of cayenne peppers right here. I'm gonna do the same thing with all of these. It works the exact same way, so we don't need to watch all that necessarily. Let me get these taken care of here. Now habaneros don't have nearly as many seeds in them as jalapenos do. And again, don't rub your eyes. If you're very sensitive to peppers, you might be want to wearing some gloves or something like that. They don't really bother me too much, but you might want to take that precaution. Moving on to banana peppers. Now, one thing I'll say while I'm getting these out of here about storing your seeds, or drying them out, I should say, is you really want to stay away from paper plates, paper towels. You want to use something, styrofoam's good, ceramic, just like your dinner plates, that kind of stuff, because you use a paper plate or a paper towel and the seeds are going to stick to those, and it's incredibly difficult to get the seeds off that, or to get that off the seeds, I should say. So it's probably best to stay away from those, metal, ceramic, styrofoam, something like that works a lot better. I've got to keep track of where I'm putting these seeds. You can't tell just yet, but when we get them all out here, I'll show you. You can't really tell just by looking at them which one's which. You don't know which ones are habaneros, which ones are jalapenos, and which ones are banana peppers. So you want to make sure you stick a label on these too. I've got a piece of masking tape over here I'm going to write the names on and put them in the, stick them on there so I'll know which ones are which. So there's one banana pepper. I think we'll get one more just to make sure that we have enough. Might be a good idea to wear some glasses when you're working with peppers too. These are not hot peppers here, but when you're working with hot peppers, they can, you go to breaking them open and stuff like that, they'll squirt out. You don't want to squirt that in your eyes. That's about the worst thing that can happen. All right, I'm done with the peppers. I need to go get some things cleaned up here. Make sure I'm not getting peppers all over everything and in my eyes and that kind of stuff. So let me wash up all this stuff because the rest of the stuff's nowhere near, it's not hot or spicy or any of that kind of stuff. So let me get this taken care of. I'll come back. We'll talk about how to save seeds from some of the other things here real quick. All right, so got the peppers all taken care of. Got everything washed up here. So now I can start working on some other things. Let's talk about green beans. Beans in general, you pretty much want to let them dry on the vine. So this is a good example. Well, actually, this one's probably a little bit better of an example. It's kind of looking kind of bad, but it should kind of pretty much, the skin should just split open and you can just pop the beans out. That's kind of what you're looking for there. And it takes quite a few more green beans to save than it does like peppers because they don't have nearly as many seeds in them as what peppers do. But this is your seed in a green bean. Of course, you probably already knew that. But it's the same kind of thing. These are pretty much already dried, so I probably don't need to worry about drying them anymore. But just in case, I'm gonna pop them in there and just save them. I don't need to worry about labeling those. Nothing looks like green bean. But again, you want them to be dry. This one's a little bit wet still. It's not cracking, it's peeling open, but I think it's okay. I'm not done saving green beans yet. I'm gonna have to get several more because this is only, 15, 20 green beans, and I need a lot more than that whenever I go to plant next year. So, but again, green beans, super easy. Just leave them on the vine until they dry. Sometimes you may have to get them off the vine a little bit before they dry, but they should still be this kind of brown, leathery color before you go to harvesting them for seed. You may have to, like this, we've had so much rain that they're just not drying out. So like this one's still a little green. Probably not a great option to save seeds from, but I'm gonna go ahead and try. And you can tell the difference maybe. Let me get up close to the camera and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, you can probably tell this is a mature bean that's ready to save for seed. This is not. This is nice and green and soft and pliable. That's not gonna be good to save for seed. You really wanna let them mature completely and let them dry out before you save them for seed. Okay, so get those out of the way. Let's talk about okra. Okra is super easy. You just leave it on the plant until it dries. And again, you can hear the seeds shaking in there. You really don't even need to crack this open and get the seeds out. You could just leave them in the okra pot and just store them in there as long as it's completely dried out, and they'll dry right on the plant. That's all you need to do. And then whenever you're ready to use them, you just crack it open, take the seeds out and plant them. So it stores really, really well that way. I'm not even gonna bother with taking them out. I'm just gonna leave them in there instead of, why take them out and put them in another container when they're in their own container altogether, and I don't have to worry about labeling them. Of course, you know what okra seed looks like. It looks like nothing else. But that's all you gotta do with okra. It's super easy to save. And really, probably one of these would be plenty. There's a ton of seed inside of okra, and one of these would be more than enough to replenish your garden for the next year. But I saved 2 of them just to be sure. Okay, cucumber. Here's a good example of letting it get overripe, and that's what you want to do. You want to let it get overripe. This is a nice yellow cucumber, so this is one that's going to be good for saving seed. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to cut it open and get the seeds out of it. It might be easier to do with a spoon. This is a little bit messy, but just scrape the seeds out. Now this is producing a lot of liquid here. Before I throw these in there, I'm not gonna throw them in there to dry just yet. What I'm gonna do is put them in some water and let them soak for a while to get the seeds separated from the pulp and the, the juice and all that kind of stuff. These are very similar to tomatoes. You do tomatoes the same way. I don't have any tomatoes right now to save seed from. I mean, I've got some in the garden growing, but they're not ready yet. But you do tomatoes the same way. You basically just scrape the seeds out, but it's going to come out with all this pulp and stuff like that. Stick them in a glass of water overnight, and they'll kind of ferment a little bit. All the pulp and stuff will separate from the seeds, and then you can just dig the seeds out and dry them. Once they're done, then I'll go ahead and dry them. So we don't need to worry about that. And cantaloupe. Let me get this kind of cleaned up, and then we'll come back and we'll show you. Well, actually, I can probably show you already. This cantaloupe was laying on the ground, so it's kind of nasty, but it's going to be just fine for saving seed from. So same kind of thing. We're just going to cut it open. We're going to take the seeds out. And again, I'm going to let those soak in some water to separate the seeds from the nasty, pulpy mess that we've got going on right here. And let me do that real quick. Now I will need to label these because right now it's pretty obvious which one's cucumber, which one's cantaloupe. But once these things get separated from the pulp, there's not going to be any way to tell. The seeds look almost identical. So let me go grab some glasses of water. I'll show you how that works. All right, so I got my glasses of water here. This is pretty easy to do. I've got one of them, got a piece of tape on it, labeled cucumber, labeled cantaloupe. So I'm going to get rid of that seed there because I don't know for sure what it is. And we're just going to scoop this stuff up, stick it in there. These little stray seeds on the side, we'll just get rid of them. I'm not 100% sure if those are cantaloupe or cucumber. And then I might agitate that a little bit, get that stuff kind of broke up. And then we're just going to give it time to kind of settle out. And we should be able to, the seeds kind of float to the top. I don't know if you can see that. So I should be able to just kind of skim them out of it. And I probably don't need to wait that long, but a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll give it overnight, and that'll give it time to just kind of everything just kind of gel up and get taken care of. Same thing with the cantaloupe. I'm just going to stick it in there. And again, tomatoes work the same way. I always give tomatoes overnight, at least roughly 24 hours. Just really helps to separate them from the pulp and the juice of the tomato itself. Makes it easier to get your seeds out for sure. Now once these are all separated, then I'll just kind of pick the seeds out, and we'll get them in a container to dry just like you would anything else. Tomato seeds work the same way. Once you get the seeds out of the pulp, then you just stick them on a container to dry, and that's all you need to do. And you can kind of see probably, for the most part, I've got most of the pulp off those now. It's pretty easy. You can just kind of skim the seeds off, but again, I like to let them sit overnight, give them a little while to make sure that they are separated. Get all that pulp out of there, and then just remove them from there. It's not too hard from that point. Okay, so here is my seed harvest for this year. Pretty good. I mean, I've got some cayenne peppers here, some, I don't remember what these are. I think these are the habaneros. You guys can see them on that side. I can't see them on this side. I think these are jalapenos. These are the banana peppers. I got some green beans, just a few though. I need a lot more green beans. Not good on that. Plenty of okra seed, plenty of cantaloupe, plenty of cucumber, the other way around, plenty of cucumber, plenty of cantaloupe. Got some tomato seed already saved, so I don't need to worry about that. But if you're looking for ways to save money, this is a fantastic way to do it. This is probably, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, $15 worth of seeds right here that didn't cost me a thing. So it's great. Now let me show you something else here real quick. This is a seed that's properly dried. Let me get up close and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Hopefully this is in camera and you can see. When I pinch this seed, it breaks in half. I mean, completely breaks in half. You can see that, snapped in half. 2 parts, right? As opposed to one of these seeds that's not completely dried yet. Whoops, I lost that. I don't know where it went. When I pinch that seed, no matter how hard I pinch, all it does is bend. All it does is dent the seed. So that's how you can kind of tell when the seed's properly saved or not. Let me get that seed out of there. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've never saved seeds before, it's really a pretty simple thing to do, and there's no reason not to. As long as you're growing heirloom plants, save your seeds year after year, you don't ever have to buy seeds again. Now I do still have to buy seeds every once in a while, but that's mostly because of my laziness. I forgot to save the seeds. I didn't store them properly, you know, something like that. But again, as long as you dry them out completely, then you can just move them into whatever kind of container you want to move them into, save them in a kind of a dark, cool place. They're going to keep for years, several years. You don't have to worry about, you know, like if I don't save seeds from tomato this year, I've got tomato seeds saved from last year. They're going to be fine next year. They're going to save for 2, 3, 4, 5 years easily. Your viability does start to drop after a while, but honestly, I've saved seeds for 4 or 5 years and had excellent results out of them. So there's no reason you have to really stress about that. Anyway, again, if you've never saved seeds before, I encourage you to start doing it. It's a fantastic way to really save a lot of money in gardening, not having to buy seeds again. It just means you get a jump start on it. You don't have to worry about spending the money on it. You just get a lot more for your money. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. As always, God bless.